same time?
No. I have like actually a lot of times because I need to take.
I don't carry a watch anymore.
No, I'm saying that my time is really. I cannot put like a big.
Okay, that's good. So it's 10:10 now.
Is that an alarm? Oh no, that's the clock. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just introduce the meeting. So I chose the Jepson article to discuss because he's saying there's a new way that people are looking at how people can help the environment that's coming out, and it's a new way that's not really focusing on crisis and blaming the people who are hurting the environment, right? So it's like different than the 20th century way of looking at how we can save the environment. And in particular, he talks about demonstration projects that give people hope. And to me, I thought that would sound kind of similar to ScienceWalden, like a way of demonstrating a different way of doing things in a way that can give people hope. So, whereas he's talking about what's going on in Europe, and clearly what's going on here in Korea and ScienceWalden will be different, I thought maybe we could tease out some similarities or differences between the European scenario that he presents and the Korean scenario that we are working in. But in the meantime, I also wanted to bring up the article, the kind of commentary about the fires in the Amazon by this Pedro Solon, who's writing from Bolivia, where a lot of the fires are happening. So I thought we could start with that. So, according to Solon, what are the causes of the fire in the Amazon? I'm sorry?
Economy, of course.
Economy?
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe big company.
Big company? Okay.
I actually saw some news
Yeah.
with very similar news with that.
Okay.
That fire in Indonesia. They burn the forest because of the palm oil, to making palm oil.
Okay.
The reason why they burned the forest was the palm oil, and mainly the user of the palm oil is some company who makes some snack or some food, kind of big company. So I think that's the reason, I guess.
Okay, yeah, so we tend to eat a lot of palm oil in our snacks. Does anyone here like Nutella? I do, but that's like pure palm oil. We're basically eating the forest when we eat. Yeah, so it's producing agricultural commodity. Yeah, that's a good parallel.
I think it also has to do with the beef production business. It
Okay.
seems like those countries around the Amazon need a pasture to grow cows, to produce beef so that they can export to the big countries like China.
Yeah.
I think that's also a problem.
Yeah, so exactly. So not just to grow other plants, but also to grow beef. Yeah. And the context of the trade war between the U.S. and China. So now China doesn't want to buy American beef, American soybeans. So in the Amazon, they say, hey, let's take advantage of that. We can sell more beef to China.
So basically everything is political there. Because I got the impression from reading this article that it's a political problem more
Okay.
than an economic or environmental one. Basically, they put new legislation to expand the agriculture business so they can get more votes, or I don't know the situation there. But it seems like he's blaming the politician, like the author Solon. he's blaming the new regulations in Bolivia. So of course, after this, when you make legal the deforestation by fire, of course, everyone will start getting more wildfires to
Yeah, it could make
deforest.
both. Yeah.
It was like they say in the article something about the business. Yeah, but that's it. Oh, the slashing and burning practice. Yeah, they used that even before. But now that it was legal, it expanded.
Okay. So on the one hand, there's market signals, the economy, so saying, oh, there's a market for soy in China. And then on the other hand, there's also political signals where politicians are encouraging people to burn the land so that they can grow other stuff. Actually, for beef, you have to, in that kind of environment, there isn't naturally growing stuff for cows to eat. So you actually have to burn off the trees and plant grass. You actually have to bring in grass seeds and plant grass for cows to eat. And cows don't eat just any grass, so you have to put the kind of grass the cows eat. So it is actually a crop that they would grow, just like soy or palm oil. But in Latin America, traditionally, if the land is forest, it doesn't belong to anyone, but if you come in and burn off the land, it used to be that the government would let you keep that land, like it can become your private property. Right? So that's kind of the political signal. So the president of Brazil has said, the different countries in this, because this is Brazil, but president of Brazil has said, oh, if you burn off land and claim it, I'll make sure you get title. You can get the title. It's private property. So that's a clear signal for people to go in and start burning more land. So we have both, economy and, politics.
But they always go hand in hand, economy and politics.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess in ScienceWalden we need to be savvy about both, right?
Yeah, I was talking with Hye-jung yesterday,
Yeah.
telling about we should get more political because this is not working on you economical point of view.
For specifically the goal?
Yeah, for the goal, exactly.
Okay. And then what did she say? You're right or you're wrong?
We need to discuss this.
Or she said how? How would we do it?
Well,
I said
don't-
nothing. I just listened about his opinion.
my weird opinions.
Yeah. I don't know whether we can make a party. We can make a party for the group, but I'm not sure.
You feel cautious
Yeah.
about getting into politics. What makes you feel cautious?
If we make a party in Korea, we can be. We hope that I hope that this party can be conservative, maintain. I want sustainable party, but we can be parties, and also we can lose our own thing, because in political they fight for some ideology, and there is no reality in political time. So I'm afraid that we can lose our own spirit for thinking.
Okay, yeah, so there's that feeling like politicians play dirty, they're just opportunists, there's no reality. Yeah, in the article, Solon said that in Bolivia, the politicians said they're taking care of the environment. So specifically, he said they changed the law and they consider the mother nature as Pachamama. The Pachamama, oh, you know about that?
No, I mean, I just read it.
Yeah. The Pachamama was like a goddess of the Incas, because the Inca was a country that included Bolivia, Peru, and Chile before the Spanish came. So like they're saying, okay, we're gonna honor the Pachamama and protect nature, and then now what do? Right? So there's a different opportunity, so now they go the other way, right? So that kind of fits what you said, there's no reality, meaning whatever the opportunity is, you should follow it. So yeah, maybe I can see why you're cautious about getting political. But then he came from Romania and he brought this totally different perspective.
No, I didn't mean to get political like at first.
Yeah.
I'm just asking about the discussions that the members of science group have in Korea. So I heard that they focus on the economic aspect, but nobody is taking us seriously, like outside the university.
Yeah.
And I said, of course, because the basic income it's a political thing. You cannot just go to people and say, oh, we have this. It's more like a country regulates that. So we have a basic income and everyone has access to it and everyone accepts it. But we cannot just make our own basic income without some kind of political backup. It's hard to catch to everyone.
Bogdan just came from Romania and said this controversial thing. What are we gonna do?
I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily, because even the problem with having political backing is that it's also subject to who's in power. And so, like for instance, in Canada there was a trial of basic income.
And Norway also, and Finland, I guess.
Yeah,
they failed.
Yeah, so I mean, so they're all a different situation, because in Finland they completed it was supposed to be like a 1 year or 2 year study, and then at the end they said, okay, it was a failure. But in this current context of the conversation of needing political power, the situation in Canada is a good sort of analogy, because they started it, and then it was supposed to be a 4-year program, but then after 2 years, there was a change in government, and the new people who came in were like, this is crap, we don't want this. So they just cut it off.
When was it?
Probably maybe 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty recent.
Who did it?
So in Canada, they did they selected a sample group that they were given, I think, I don't know how much exactly, but I think $1,000 or something like that. And then it was running for some time, but then there was a change, because it wasn't the whole country, but it was just a city called Hamilton or something like that.
Okay,
but then that's
even in the city, it's hard to.
That's the problem with having political backing, because then it's also very subject to who's in power. And I think at the end of the day, I also kind of disagree that politics plays a huge part in, just like from that article, I think politicians also work based on social incentives, and so they're looking at how do we get people to vote for us.
Yeah,
and that also depends on how people think, the government is beneficial, and so they want to have more food, and they want to see that diesel is cheaper, and so I think there's a lot of things that goes into it.
Yeah, well, I kind of mean this thing when I talk political, the social power, not the political institutions, the government. Okay. Like, how can we make people to respect certain rules or accept new laws or systems? And that's the politics I'm talking about, not the debates and who's going first and who's going second. It's like, how can we get people to accept this? Because if a majority of people accept a certain system, then it becomes part of the not culture, but more like the system. It becomes the dominant system. So that's the political thing that I was talking about, which is hard to implement and even define sometimes.
I think the main topic is important. When we using the political way, maybe if I have a very strong belief about some project that which is very controversial to other people, then I could use political way. But when I start this project, then people might be agreeing after running this project. But this kind of cultural, I mean, like environmental project, then people already understand what's going on right now. So maybe the political way is not suitable for this kind of environmental issues, because everyone knows what is the problem. Maybe Obamacare, that kind of thing, needs political way.
Yeah.
Not the environmental problem.
I hope people know. But I'm skeptical.
I believe they all know, but they just ignore it.
Yeah.
Because this happened in not their yard, not in front of their yard.
What about this though? I kind of thought also that Professor Joe's idea for the FSM is sort of avoiding political thing, but then I noticed in the game he did include the political part. Why do you think that was important to him to include that? It's hard to guess. He's not here, but yeah, maybe.
That's the social part of the
Yeah.
the economy. So we need to accept it, and I guess politics play a role. Like how we view the world, like liberal, socialist, moderation plays a role on how we use the goal.
Ah, I see. So you think it could affect how we use the...
Yeah, how we think about it and how we use.
And also in the game, there was a rule that in the statistics, if liberal is the highest one,
Yeah.
then next day, the liberal will get the least.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
These isn't it moves?
Highest is.
Oh,
so
really?
looking
I thought it was the other way around.
So they will just cheat and every day change the political
Maybe if
beliefs.
you wanted to see whether people will change their mind according to get it. Or they can stick to their own state.
I think in that context, it's, the idea is probably what I think is that it's just playing on the idea that, because there have been studies that have shown that if people are introduced to behaviors of their peers, then they are more willing to, copy, because it's just social learning. At the end of the day, we all look at what other people are doing and be like, oh, this is what I should be doing too. And so I think being that, it's not as much about political powers, political, like parties, but just putting people into certain groups and then showing these groups to other people in the network, if I should say, this whole social learning network, to see if it's going to affect what decisions they make. But as to why it's, like solar energy, but I honestly, that I still, I'm not too sure, but I think that's the whole idea of just using social learning to affect behavior. And so that's why every week you see what everybody else is doing to see if it's going to affect behaviors. But I don't know if it's supposed to mean, politics in the conventional sense. So that's how I sort of
True.
These groups are important, but more like with friends. I prefer to see my friends, if they are in what political party are they in. They will influence me more than some kind of strangers believe.
Well,
So that's yeah, I agree with that.
that's true.
The social part, everyone influences everyone, but more like close friends influence us more.
Well, that's kind of debatable because, that's why I'm saying that there was a book that I read and it was talking about that you think that it's the friends, that are going to influence you, but actually it's also a lot more about what you see other people do. And so, like there was a study where I think they gave them food and they give them pizza every week to see which people would gain weight. And most people who are introduced to random people would eat more compared to people who are their friends, for the reasoning I don't really know. But that was just like.
Jonas, you're making me hungry. Please don't talk about it.
Okay. No, but so that was it's just one of those things that are sort of counterintuitive, but then you look at it and later you're thinking, oh, maybe this is how to do it. But I mean, intuitively, that's what I also think, that it's my friends that I look at too.
Okay. Well,
And
so
I agree with them.
the basic of human behavior and what influences human, like kind of group dynamic, that's another thing
Yeah.
that can be debated, that we don't have to debate
No,
here,
that's-
but
yeah,
so
it's
clearly,
not-
like economics, politics, and then the basic human nature of social learning, sociality, are all factors in these kind of environmental issues that we want to address. Right? So let's kind of try to move on, because I do want to come to the Jepson article too before we conclude, because we don't want to spend a long time here. But in the Amazon fires, who's the most hurt or damaged by them in the short term and in the long term? I mean, you mentioned, Jonghyun, that it's kind of like not in our own backyard, right? So are we harmed by it too, or only maybe in the long term? Or?
Ideally, long term, of course,
Okay.
we are the victims too, but the people who are around here, they wouldn't notice.
Okay, how about in the immediate now? Who's most harmed by it?
Eventually, it's going to affect probably almost everybody in the globe, because
Yeah.
I was told that Amazon is responsible for the decrease of CO2 in Japan. So we the kind of slash and burn type of thing keep happening,
Yeah.
and probably that's going to cause a serious problem environmentally. So everybody can be affected.
Okay.
And I was wondering, actually, I think this is kind of a problem for everybody. Other political leaders in a different country, such as, some economical compensation in Brazil, and then the president kind of refused that.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, is there some kind of, can there be some kind of sanction that can somehow force, that to accept those kind of
It even got worse, because then like, the president of Brazil started insulting the wife of the president of France, saying like, your wife is so old and ugly, and my wife is so young and beautiful. Like, are these people like really native? But yeah, so one of the issues, I guess, is that sort of aid, like helping other countries with the environment by giving them money. So I guess that involves, that's another level. But your question is, could we influence them more?
Yeah, I mean, is there any kind of, I think it's rational for the leaders in the country like Brazil and Bolivia to accept the kind of aid from other countries, so that they can be economically stable at the same time preserving the nature. But, I mean, if the leaders like Brazilian president refuse to do that, is there any way that other countries can deal with it? I just
Yeah, well, that kind of aid is controversial. Like one famous example is Ecuador said, okay, we're not going to get the oil out of the Amazon if other countries will donate money up to this level, and then we're going to like keep the Amazon safe for like the whole world and preserve it. Because then we don't have to get the oil if we donate to this fund, right? But they didn't get enough donations, so then like eventually they said, okay, we're gonna have to let the Chinese oil companies come in here and start like, pumping out oil, right? So we didn't get enough donations. So like it's not clear if that kind of aid works, but then that one-time fail So I don't know if it could be developed more, but you'd have to get more. I think that kind of goes with the second narrative that Jepsen talked about, which is like the Earth resource model. I guess let's go ahead and then talk about the different narratives. So first, according to Jepsen, why does he think that narratives are important for guiding the human? Actually, Haejong was a literature major, so maybe you could tell us about why are narratives important? Okay. So is that true in your opinion? Like you also majored in business. Is narrative important in business world too?
Yes.
Okay, how so?
Narrative is easy way to persuade people.
Okay.
And people can understand also complex things.
Okay, why does it help persuade?
Why?
Yeah.
For business.
Yeah. Okay.
People can pay for some good item if some narrative things like for environmental narrative, if I get this company,
Yeah.
company will say that this can save the earth by
Okay.
not using some plastic.
So almost any product should have a narrative behind it, right? Whether it's a new video game system or a cup that can save the world. Okay. Any other ideas why narrative works? Why does it?
That's how our mind works. Like
Okay.
even for the first article, for example, there is a narrative there. There is the slot, which is not so important to the main idea, but
Right.
the writer put it there for a reason. Because we want to have like a main character, a villain, these concepts that are universal. So I think it's the same thing with the environmental issues. People like to blame someone or to make someone accountable or to even feel themselves like they are part of the solution.
Yeah.
So people like stories, in short.
Yeah. How about episodic value? Are stories important in producing the episodic value?
Well, I was thinking that when you're any kind of discussion, it often helps if somebody comes up with some personal stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's because people somehow share some kind of understanding. So if someone goes with a personal story, it's a personal story, but it somehow touches certain kind of universal emotion or feeling people share, so that we can have, through the personal experience, we can see something more common.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone has their own personal narrative, like how you came here, what makes you want to get up and come to UNIST every day. We all have different stories behind that, right? And then if you can plug your own personal narrative into that shared narrative, that can get people to work together. That's very true. What about, so according to Jepsen, what are the three narratives that have guided environmental conservation? I think there's actually 4 in the article, but he only gives names to 3 of them. Oh, you thought that too? Or?
Yeah, he combined two.
Yeah, he combined 2 into 1, yeah.
Maybe he combined one inspirational thing and second risk-based narrative. Combine those 2 and forward to conservative narrative.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, so I guess he did some historical work on the origin of environmentalism in the 19th and 20th century, right? So he said people started saying, oh, we have to protect species, but...
Like a moral obligation.
Okay, yeah, what does that mean then, as a moral obligation?
Yeah, that was like, it's really short, the history of this part.
Yeah.
So I didn't really look at it much.
Yeah.
And then he continued about the history and reaches the finite Earth narrative.
Yeah.
But yeah, the moral obligation, moral responsibility doesn't feel like it's part of the finite Earth narrative. It's more like the human value, not the human value, the values that we want to give, a moral responsibility of humans, which are like the best beings on Earth. So we have a responsibility to everyone else, and our planet is just moral. We don't get anything out from it except fulfillment, maybe.
I mean, that's a good word, responsibility, like just sort of based on, oh, it's your responsibility to take care of your species.
I guess in that sense also, I feel like it's also something of an ego thing that like humans are, we're at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Like, and so we're supposed to take care of the earth in that sense. That's also one part that he mentioned in terms of just feeling like, oh, that's what's civilized. And I feel like this is something that would come from the West because, you know, the West generally, like, historically, has always felt like, you know, if it comes to us being human and being civilized, then you sort of have an idea of what that's supposed to be like. And I think this also feeds into that. We have to take care of the earth because we're the most civilized.
That's a great point, Jonas. Yeah, I think he did point out it's based on this notion of human superiority and like, oh, we have to help that poor sloth. Like, oh, what a poor sloth, that sloth. You know, let's help him and we'll be great by helping those animals. So yeah, there's this, it's very Western-centric, very human, based on the idea that humans are the best. And so it's our responsibility because we're the only intelligent creatures, right? So this kind of moral responsibility, but then that develops into this finite earth narrative. So what was added to it to make the finite earth narrative?
I guess that word, resources are going to run. That's like a catastrophe.
Yeah, the apocalypse,
you know,
the crisis.
Yes, it's
right?
a crisis.
Okay, when did that come in?
It's interesting that it's exactly after World War II.
Okay.
So yeah, after people already in despair with all the distractions in the world, they start thinking about the environment and how destroying the environment now will affect them in the future, and also humanity will have to suffer.
Okay, so yeah, the threat of the end of the world. So he mentioned some books. The only one I knew is Silent Spring, which was published in 1962, that talked about how pesticide is destroying like both humans' health and the environment. And in 1962, that was like a crazy idea because people just thought, oh, technology just makes our life better. Like no one thought like technology is hurting us, right? At least in the US, right? Or in the US or Korea, right? And then he mentioned some other books too, but so he said, okay, so this is the basis of that finite Earth narrative, right, which creates a state of events, state meaning like what's happening, which is damage, harm, right? Cause, which then would include, you know, of course, the chemicals in this case, but then the villain, you mean some bad guys, right? Like big business,
Really
companies that are making these things, right? And then finally, consequence, which is the threat, and then the what we have to do things. So it leads to what kind of action we should take, which is that, if we just put pressure on the government to fix the problem, it'll be fixed. Right. So it is ultimately making a political issue. So they're thinking like Bogdan, right? Like, okay, we need a political solution to this problem. Is that a logical narrative?
No, it's based
No?
on feelings. I think this is based on feelings, the finite earth narrative. They just act because they feel threatened.
Yeah.
So it leads to a lot of activism, ecological activism, which sometimes is good, sometimes it's not so good. Depends on what kind of rules they respect in their fight.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think it's very rational.
Okay.
I think there's still some amount of logic in there because, of course, for instance, the state, they have the power, and so they are the ones who have, sort of the leeway, and they should be able to handle stuff when they're going bad. And so I think at the end of the day, we still need some of that, a little, because then we can't say that it's totally illogical in some sense, because then they're the ones who are in charge. And so if this is new, they're like, whoever's doing it, or the person who's in charge, you have to fix it because they're the ones doing it. I mean, at that time, I'm guessing it is sort of a logical argument. And even in this current context, we still need a little bit of that, because at the end of the day, politics is still a dominant part.
He even talks about this, the author, about like the last narrative, the recoverable art.
Yeah.
It still says that we need the other narrative as well, because they push pressure on making us act, not just stay and think everything will be okay because the earth is recoverable.
Yeah.
So
That's a good point. Yeah. So we still need some of the crisis
we still
narrative.
need some of it.
Because there are crises.
Yeah.
Is it okay? So what's the second narrative, major environmental narrative that emerged in the 80s and 90s? Okay. What is that narrative? Resource or?
we'll start looking at art as a natural resource and as a capital in economy. Basically, I think this is more from an economy point of view. They make everything look about the benefits, cost, profit, loss.
Okay. So what are some of the key words from the resource earth narrative? Like, so you said they don't have as many villains, like not as much emphasis on villains, right? So what do they emphasize? What are the key words? Probably the first narrative, the finite earth, a lot of keywords would be like big business and destroyers of the planet, right? But what about in resource earth? What would be some keywords from resource earth? One of them starts with bio.
Oh, biodiversity.
Yeah, biodiversity. Okay. And why is biodiversity an important part of this resource?
Well, I guess because then it's this idea that we need the biodiversity, and we need the biodiversity to continue, sustaining the economies, and so biodiversity helps us to create more sustainable economies, and so we need it. We need that to create more. And so if you're big business, you want to make more, then you have to ensure that you're also taking care of nature. And so I guess that's also one argument for why you start mentioning.
Okay. Yeah.
Exploiting the biodiversity,
Yeah.
in other words.
Yeah.
But sustainable exploitation, because
Okay.
we need to make sure we have enough, and it's, I don't want to say the word because it's connected to the other narrative, it's recoverable, but yeah, sustainable, I think. Sustainable growth.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I think another keyword might be value. It's a way of putting like an economic value or measuring the economic value of the environment, right? So now they're trying to say, oh, we don't need just the government to protect the environment. All we need to do is recognize the economic benefits of the environment. So one way is, okay, biodiversity. So biodiversity has all these benefits, and as long as we get the economy right, then we can realize the benefits, right? So it's not so much about punishing villains as it is of getting all the economic factors, right? So it could be that ScienceWalden is kind of in this paradigm, right? Like emphasizing more economic factors,
Yeah,
according to the way you
benefits.
perceived it, right? And our search for value, like finding ways
Yes.
to like attach value to the environment and then take our action that will increase the value, right? But then he's saying now in the 21st century, we're seeing a new narrative appears through the practices of rewilding. Who'd like to tell us about rewilding? Leon, you haven't had a chance to talk yet. Did you want to talk about rewilding or later when we talk about something?
He said rewilding is similar with mental health recovery.
It's similar with what?
Mental health.
With mental health, okay. Mental health recovery.
So this third one, recover of a personality is different with finding personality and resource personality. I need A and B. The first and second one
Yeah.
looks similar, but this one is new mechanism of phrasing those steps. And it looks like when I first saw this this recoverable personality, I didn't think this is rewilding. But it really seems like mental recovery because I am studying emotion because there has similar step with this when I got some when I stimulated with some events or some accidents.
Yeah.
And this one is the first step state, and the second step is I think, and I feel emotion or some mental state. And then third step is action, or when my mother said to me bad words, then second step I felt angry, then I can shout or I can say bad words to mom. This is the chain reaction like that. And in this process, the human's mental stress level goes down. This is very similar with recovery by doing some action and then go back to that emotion feeling step, and that will be made to either angry, then humans' emotion or some despair can be reduced everywhere.
Okay.
So when I first saw this recover of Earth narrative, it really looks like mental recovery system. write about the rewilding.
Yeah.
So then, and after that, I can understand about rewilding
I see.
process. So I wanted to say this human rights recovery step systems to you guys.
So do you think, in your opinion, is there a way that ScienceWalden can sort of help people in their own journey to recovery? Like, do you ever have that kind of idea, or you haven't really thought of anything on that line?
ScienceWalden is similar to create new narratives.
Trying to create a new narrative.
So that is very important. This author says narrative can guide people to new learning or some concepts.
Sure.
So sometimes people make new narratives. Every people always every day are making new narratives their own. But ScienceWalden is making little bit bigger narratives. So I think this is very slow.
Yeah.
And hard to persuade other people this new story.
Yeah.
So we are walking very hard.
A hard path.
I think the size doesn't matter. Of course, it is bigger and it might be good, but I believe Walden should be act like a catalysis.
Okay, catalysis, yeah.
Catalysis and chemical catalysis, really, really tiny one, but it's very
Right.
to change the situation. I remember when I was young, like 6 or 7 years old. At that time, a lot of grown people, grown men, grown guys, smoking in the bus.
Oh yeah, in the
But now-
bus even.
yeah, in the
yeah.
bus. Even the kids are beside them. They don't care. Just a smoke in the bus.
In airplane too. I
In airplane,
remember
yeah,
when
that's
people
true.
smoked in airplane.
At that time, because of the social mood was just they just they could, but nowadays we couldn't see anymore, even in the bus stop,
Yeah.
because the social mood is changed because of what? Maybe the few catalysts like smoking is disgusting habit. They kind of praise or some mood. Nowadays, people understand that environmental issues are getting serious. So, few people noticed every day. More people noticed, but they need some little more speed, little more acceleration by catalysts.
Yeah, I agree that you can see a big social change in a relatively short period if you can get that catalytic process started. Yeah, that's a good metaphor. So, I guess we started ScienceWalden with a big idea, and now we're trying to create kind of the things people can do in order to help that idea, right? Like using the cool, making art, right, and appreciating art. Whereas in this case, he's saying, oh, rewilding, people started doing it, and then now he thinks this narrative like came out of that through these demonstration projects. What kind of demonstration projects did you do for rewilding? Or did they do?
detail, I don't think I remember all the details, but I guess it's people are, trying to change their farming practices. Maybe just removing fences. But it looks like these are changes being done on a minute scale as compared to, on a bigger level. It's just like people are trying to take decisions into their own hands and just to make little changes on their farms that can still go a long way to not change the whole world, the whole world's biodiversity, but just if it's your own little farm and your little things, that I think would fit into the idea of rewilding.
Yeah.
Of course, I think they give a whole process of like, you having your own story and that being a sort of a priming field to then continue to rethink what you're doing on your little field and then making these little changes that are going to bring about, also little incremental changes on your own piece of land.
Okay. Is it about farming or?
Well, I mean, I think it's because fishing. I think there were some examples being mentioned about fishing, but I don't. Well, maybe I might have to pull up.
It's not farming. It's actually wildlife, right? So they're trying to restore wildlife, but it's using any wildlife that they can, right? So if you remember the scientist E.O. Wilson, right, that he's quite famous. So he argued that, you can never rebuild biodiversity once it's destroyed because it's such a complex relationship between species. But then these guys are saying, okay, forget about that. Like even though all these species are extinct, we can just bring in a new species. Right? So it's quite controversial because some people think you shouldn't bring in alien species that's not from that country, but they're like, sure, why not? We can just bring in species from everywhere, but what's important is that we have to construct a functioning community, a functioning ecosystem. Right? So what they did is they tried to recreate wild ecosystems in places where it had been destroyed, but just using any species they could find, but creating like new relationships between the species, right? So they would just take cows and like set them free and let the cows just reproduce and go wild, and then their cows' poop would then, cause more plants to grow, and then that would bring in other species, right? And so eventually they supposedly made these working. So it's about creating new communities without caring so much about the ones that were destroyed, right? So he's saying it's getting away from this crisis or feeling of hopelessness, right? Because he said his students, when they're learning about the ecological crisis, they're like, oh man, it's so hopeless, right? So he said, I realized my students didn't want to learn about this hopeless ecological crisis. They wanted to know what they can do to build ecological communities now, right? So then that's how he connected up with all these like rewilding projects. So I think rewilding is a great brand. What a cool sounding brand, right? Like rewilding. It sounds almost like spring break, for the whole year or something. Like, yeah, let's rewild, right? So it sounds better than what it actually is. But I was like, well, what if ScienceWalden can be rewilding Korea? Wow, let's go for it. Maybe we can make a new version, right? So maybe. But in Korea, it would be something different than what it is. So what do you imagine for rewilding Korea or rewilding Hungary or rewilding Ghana?
Does this also have to be just like animals or like, because that's what, because I thought.
But if it's just rebuilding communities, it doesn't have to be like animals. But animals can definitely be part of it if you want them. But yeah, the requirement is not that it's animals. It can include AI, It can include spirits. It can include the heat. In ancient times, Koreans lived in harmony with mountains and rivers. They had the tongsu system, right, for the energy of mountains and rivers. It could include that, if you wanted to. So it can include energy, it can include spirit, it can include animals, and hopefully humans. What, do you have any vision for rewilding?
For rewilding?
Yeah, or
I'm a
any.
little bit afraid of, because for the nature, it is not going back to the past.
Okay.
Because we want to make it again with the nature. And in this part, for example, for these parts, this is destroyed and I want it to be rewild.
Yeah.
There can, in this area, there can be another species which was not in this spot.
Right.
So, in that sense, for example, in Korea, for historical view, there were many good area or bad area for the people.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure if I rewild Korea and let them do whatever they want. I'm not sure where Korea can go. Korea do the things again. The thing can be good thing with new technology or new thinking. So it is not predictable to decide something. More confusion.
Okay.
I'm
It's confusing.
yeah. In my perspective, it's confusion.
Yeah, the point is we cannot go back to what it was, so that's how we eliminate the despair from our thinking, that we can never build our earth how it was.
Right.
We don't. We cannot do that. The
Right.
past is the past. We can just build a new earth and just bring all the animal, fauna, flora in an area and hope for the best. I think it's dangerous if it's not done by people who know what they're doing. Like if it's a local community and they just want to rewild an area and they don't know what they're doing, maybe they don't take into account some species that they live there and bring new species, and the species already there will be extinct. Like maybe small species, who knows, insects or something, that they
True.
never account for that.
Yeah.
So we need to be careful which area we rewild and why. What is our purpose? Shouldn't we focus
and who
on
can do it? Yeah.
who can do it? It's really important.
Yeah. I think in the article they mentioned that it was in Netherlands, and then the Dutch government was convinced to do it, right? So I thought, like, well, in ScienceWalden too, we get support from the government, right? So it seemed like something you need to do working with the government. It might be bad, yeah, if just one village does it without consulting anyone. Like, you're right, it could introduce some harmful species or have harmful results.
In the end, there will be balance anyway, because nature balances itself. But as humans, we always think about our benefits a little bit. So, do we want to be responsible for an extinction of a species just to get a new species in one area? Who knows?
Okay. Do you see any hope for rewilding Korea? Donghyun?
I'm not sure, but I saw something that marketing by Hyundai.
Okay.
Hyundai sells a car, hybrid car. Their face is like a run with the solar system, run by solar energy. That kind of praise could help, because it helped the actual environment, but it sounds like very technical, very very sophisticated, very
Sophisticated,
technically sophisticated sounds like, but actually it is not.
Okay.
It is a waste of a technology, because actually the solar energy run by solar energy is a total lie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
even few customers have already tested it, compared with the gasoline, with the solar, their solar energy system. It's a waste of money. Don't choose this option. But it doesn't matter. This phrase has some power to change people's mind.
I'm gonna get his advice before I buy a car.
So you think even if a story it's not honest, it's still helping? Like they don't have an honest story for the branding.
Yeah, it's a lying and marketing. But I of course it's bad, but I prefer that kind of trend is important. That kind of moving part of
Okay, so marketing is
yeah.
important. So you're recognizing the importance of marketing is what is your
The marketing and the social move, social yeah, that kind of things.
So do you think there's already a social move in Korea and we can sort of jump onto that?
A little bit
With
green
school and
Yeah, I also still remember. Today keep talking about for examples. Anyway, I remember that the Leonardo DiCaprio, he has a car, Prius, Toyota Prius, which is already few years old, almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
At the time, everyone was staring. Why are you driving that ugly car?
It's ugly.
Look like some fishy. Why is he driving like he have enough money? So why is he at that time? we think like
California
that.
is very popular.
Yeah, it
Ugly
is. It is.
car.
Yeah,
It's funny. I mean,
yeah. But nowadays we all drive an electric car, like the Tesla. Tesla is top notch of selling in US.
Yeah.
Almost the top 3. It's impressive. So
That looks good, so
Yeah.
you did something right there.
Yeah, so you're saying like it again is sort of catalysis.
Yeah,
Like
catalysis.
once it really picks up steam, right?
Yeah.
So we just need to get to that point where
whether we want or not, this social mood will change. Will move to the eco-environmental kind of the situation.
again perceiving the benefits. Once the benefits are clear to people, right? So
That's why an honest story is important, because it can backfire. Like if we build a car which we say it's green and it's actually not, but people don't know the technical side. And then someone who knows science just published this. I don't know what he's trying to do, just because he
Yeah.
likes to expose the truth. And then everyone will read, and let's say first a group of people will believe it, and they will test it, they will say it's true, and then there will be a total backfire, and people will say no, electric cars and hybrid cars don't work, or everything is a lie. So we're back to the traditional one. So we need to say exactly the benefits. Like when we build our story, should state clearly like this is still a work in progress.
but the benefit again should be health. The
Yeah.
journey to health, like quitting smoking or not letting smokers
Yeah.
near the rest of us. Kind of like, oh, we want to
That
restore
was-
our health.
that was true.
Do you have any
I mean,
final? Oh, go ahead. Jump.
Oh no, so I mean, just reading this whole thing, I think one thing that stood out for me is the concept of withWalden, and I think FSM as a concept, actually, I think it's trying to undertake a process of rewilding of money, and I think now the problem that we're having with FSM is actually the narrative around it and being able to actually, look at how we can sell it or market it to people
Yeah.
so they can understand. Because I think money is something that a lot of people agree is, sort of a cancer. But we have taken it as, that's just how it is. And that's how we can all just live with it. And I think it's also sort of in the same situation of people living in despair, like, oh, what do we do about this? But we don't want to do anything about it. But I think that is where this whole concept of FSM being able to I don't know if I can say rewild, but rewild money But then it's very difficult, to just say take this because everybody's so used to, and of course the benefits are not very apparent just because money is already, it's so ubiquitous and it's so ingrained in our lives. So I think that's why now we're trying to do this whole toilet, like trying to use all these other little things to see if we can still. But I think one of the most important things now for us is to look at how the narrative around, FSM can be thought of to reroute money in the context of whatever we're doing now. So yeah, that's just what I thought that this concept of rerouting is actually very fascinating because I never heard of it before. That's what stuck out to me after reading the book.
So you and I can talk about that more. What time? So yeah, maybe we should wrap up soon. But so the main thing I guess that we can do with this class is like Professor E and I and Professor Lee Jong-un can just sort of share with you what kind of things that we know about or are interested in. So while you do your projects, you can consult with us if you think there's any overlap or any way that we can advise you. So the main thing is, I guess, for us to be a resource for your projects. So do we have, who do they submit the project? They submit the projects to all of us. And we're all gonna,
Yeah, I think so.
gonna evaluate. And then I guess we need to come up with a due date, the specific day.
Well, it depends on what kind of form they accept for that. I mean, if there's some kind of exhibition, for example, then you need a specific date. But if it's something like a paper or something, then you
Yeah.
can
So do we need to ask for our perspectives, like some kind of just a paragraph describing what you want to do this semester and how you plan to do it? Like materials, methods, procedures, like one short paragraph with your basic idea, with the proviso that you can change your idea if it's not working out. Okay. When do you think you could get that to us? Like within a week or end of this week? Everyone has an idea sort of bubbling around in your head? Yeah?
Many ideas.
Fermentation is very active. You have many ideas.
Yeah, but that's ideas.
Okay.
That's only ideas. Nothing else.
Okay, but that's fine at this point. But why don't you sit down, outline a basic idea in just one paragraph. Doesn't even have to be a full page. But I'll email you just the basic things. So you should include like what's the materials, methods, procedures, and the main idea or the main achievement you hope to get out.
So I have a question about this project. What form can it take?
I
You
think
already
we're leaving
mentioned
it open.
like any one paper or something else.
It could be a performance. It could be a diagonal performance if you wish. It can be drama performance. It can be a short story. You want to, if you're into like creative writing. I actually made my class write a science fiction story about how will Korea be in the future, right?
Can we do that?
Huh?
Can we do that?
Yeah. You can make it a story.
I already write stories, so it's
Yeah.
great for-
We're leaving it open, but you have to like, you have to develop it. I hope you won't just write your first draft and something.
No, yeah, I know the process of drafting and revision,
Yeah.
revision.
I think a work of fiction is qualified. Yeah. So yeah, we want to leave the format open, but we'll just hope that you can, show all the things you learned over the semester. while
Now I
you're
have
doing
more
it.
ideas than at the beginning, so I don't know if that's good or bad.
What kind of achievement was there in the previous semester? What I remember is in the last year, you guys went to Venice a presentation there, and that was project. And what else was there? I don't know about the other classes.
We did one class with actually that was doing the biogas, DIY biogas tank measurements, tank measurements, and then we did a project on community development. So usually I think every semester is different, but last semester that was one of the big, every professor gives us their own project. We do that somehow. Yeah, so that's but this time I'm guessing it's one paper for everybody, or is it also? Hopefully it's one paper for everybody.
Well, it's easier for us to grade if each person does their own project.
Yeah, I mean, no, of course we would do our own project, but like, not for, because we previously, everybody would do their own project for every single professor and what they give us. And so in this situation, it's one for all three of you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, and then we're gonna each like go over your project, and then we're all gonna get together and we're gonna talk about you and decide.
Also, I think you mentioned that if you want to do the project with someone else, like for instance you and Bob, for example, and then maybe you can talk to us
and then I know Leon, you've worked with Professor Idomu a lot, so you know that her schedule is that she has like a big performance to prepare for now, but then in November she'll be more available to do this kind of right. So you might not see her a lot before then, but I'm sure you can consult with her one-on-one, right? So yeah, so she's available to work on the project. So you can meet us one-on-one anytime. I mean, if you want to meet again, if you want me to give you more articles to discuss, I'm happy to do that, but I'd rather just let you guys start crafting your own project, and then, you know, if you want to meet with me one-on-one, you know, just let me know. We'll get together. Okay, so when are you sending us your perspectives? By what? This Friday?
This Friday.
Or next week? This Friday? Okay.
This one up?
And then they can just email it.
Everybody want to say bye?
And then it's not like we're grading it, but we just want to see what you're going to do.
Oh. I hope I recorded it.
Sure, yeah. But